Excelsior, true believers, it looks like Marvel is back into role-playing. What's up, Internet? Jay here with Nerd Rage Against the Machine, and today we're going to do a review of this little guy. This is the new Marvel RPG, specifically called the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. Now, this is $10, written by Matthew Forbeck, and also distributed by Marvel. And the first thing you're going to notice is two things. One, this thing is tiny. It is slender as all get out. For 10 bucks especially, you'd expect that, but it's also the playtest rulebook. This is not the official full version of the game yet. There's a lot missing. It's enough to get you started, it's enough to get you by, and it's enough to really build an RPG campaign around, but you're going to notice some things are missing. Marvel has stated that if you go to marvel.com/RPG, there will be additional material there. Some good examples of things I have seen missing already. There are certain powers that seem to be gone. For example, no idea how you would do Ant-Man or the Wasp in this system right now. So again, I know that'll change, and probably the full book will be like 30 to 50 bucks, and probably about 2 to 3 times as thick, I would imagine. There's also only a smattering of characters in here, which again, I'm sure that will change. Pardon me. Marvel has had a really interesting history as far as RPGs have gone. Now, anytime that we deal with a license, an RPG that's based upon a movie, TV show, comic book, toy line, whatever, there's a good chance that when it goes from one iteration to another, not really an addition, but an iteration, meaning that, like, you know, in the case of Margaret Weis, for example, lost the license due to it being overly pricey, and now Marvel's going to do their own, as a good example. Or, you know, FOSSA dropped the license for Star Trek, and then it was picked up by Last Unicorn, then Decipher, then Modiphius. Well, same thing's true here. You're going to have a very different system. And in this case, Marvel has gone through some really wacky ones. The original system from the 1980s, or from the early 80s, used a percentile dice system with a colorized chart to determine level of success. It worked and it was okay, but it was what it was. Then Marvel moved, then TSR, still TSR, then Wizards of the Coast, moved on to the Marvel Saga edition, which used cards. This was actually a pretty cool system. Mechanically speaking, I loved the way that the card system worked, and would have liked to have seen them do more with it, but again, Wizards of the Coast lost the license. The license then went to Marvel, who made a weird RPG using colored stones, and the transfer of these stones instead of actual dice or cards or anything like that. Margaret Weis's system is based on her Cortex system, which, you know, has been in all sorts of RPGs from Battlestar Galactica to Firefly to Serenity to Smallville. But this was a very solid system. It uses a pool of different dice. The new system uses a special 3d6 system that they're calling the D616 system. For those of you who are not in the know, the Marvel Universe is on Earth 616 in the multiverse. So the way that works is that you have your stats, which in this case are might, agility, resilience, vigilance, ego, and logic, which spells Marvel. That's right. It's a gimmicky thing, but it's an okay gimmicky thing. But those give you mods. You'll roll 3d6, add the two together versus the difficulty to see if you succeed. Now, the 3 dice, one should always be of a different color, or preferably by them, I'm sure, Marvel will be releasing special sets of dice, which will have that odd colored dice, so 2 white and 1 red, we'll say. That red dice will have, instead of a 1, it will have a Marvel logo, or it'll have maybe like the Spider-Man logo, or the Captain American Shield logo, or some other logo that you know, makes you know that whenever you roll a 1, something funky is going to happen. How that works is you'll roll the dice. If you roll the Marvel logo on the odd colored dice, then that counts as a special. Normally, that's a good thing. So if you succeed with the Marvel dice, then you get a little extra something. If you roll 2 6s on the white dice and then the Marvel dice rolls the 1, or in other words, a literal 616, you've now had a spectacularly awesome success. So, case in point, Spider-Man leaps after Gwen Stacy as she's falling thanks to the Green Goblin, catches her, he rolls a 616. Not only does she survive, but, you know, J. Jonah Jameson sees the whole thing and realizes it's now time to write that article. Maybe I was wrong on Spider-Man! That's where the system kind of goes with this. It's that kind of, you know, spectacular success if you roll a 616, which is kind of a cute idea. Again, gimmicky, but not bad. The system is pretty crunchy from what I've read so far. And I say read so far because I've read this, but as you can see, there's not much of it. There are powers missing. There are not a lot of characters in here. Like I said, this is a playtest manual. It's enough to get you started until the full book is available. One other weird thing, in my opinion, but a good thing, is that character creation seems to be pretty forefront in this book. One of the oddball things about Marvel as an RPG is that normally character creation was frowned upon. Now, by comparison to its distinguished competition, the Mayfair DC RPG, the West End DC RPG, and the current one, which is basically Mutants and Masterminds with a DC skin, all pretty much, you know, thought that you were going to build your own characters and then just adventure in Metropolis, Gotham, Coast City, or what have you. Marvel was more of the opinion of, you know, why would you want to build your own character when you could play Captain America, or Thor, or Deadpool? That's where they were really going with it. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see that character creation is in here. Now, one of the gimmicks is, though, that the powers come in these oddball power sets, which do seem to be more themed to specific heroes. So, for example, there's a set of powers called Spider Powers. This is not something you would see in a game like Champions or Mutants and Masterminds. You know, it really does scream this is something that is, pardon me again, but this is something specifically for Marvel, to make it Marvel-esque as possible, to remind you that this isn't just any superhero RPG you're playing, but you're playing the Marvel superhero RPG. And again, I have no qualm with that. That's, you know, it's their bag. And again, as long as the game is good, that's all that matters. The Marvel Universe is certainly not the worst universe to be playing superheroes in. But that being said, it's a decent-looking RPG. It is crunchy. It is probably crunchier than your average RPG at this point. More modern stuff. I would equate it more to RPGs from the 90s. It's certainly not Champions with all of its, you know, character auditing requirements. But it's also not Masks. I mean, if you're looking for how do you feel to play, this is going to require some more hard numbers than that. It does use a class and level system, which I also found a little odd. But, again, not terrible. Superhero games can lend themselves to classes if done right. So far, it looks good. I would say for $10, it's worth picking up. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. With the notion that, you know, the jury's still out on what a full version of this game would look like. If you're interested in the idea of playing a Marvel RPG, I think, especially for $10, it's worth a look. It's worth a read. And I can see it working well for the kind of game it is. Now, again, if you're looking for something more storied, I would definitely lean toward Icons or Masks. Masks is a great system for that. And if you're looking for something that is a lot more of a gritty, you know, dyed-in-the-wool superhero RPG, you know, the original hero system is there for a reason, as is Mutants and Masterminds. This, you know, part of the appeal of this is always going to be the universe. The fact that this is Marvel. You know, the fact that Deadpool and Wolverine and Groot all exist in this universe. And, again, they've had such a varied history of RPGs, but I think that this is a worthy successor at the moment. It is a little gimmicky, but that's okay. I would say, like I said, if you have interest in the genre and in this specific world, $10 you could do a lot worse than to read what it's going to be like. Also, of course, if you are planning on picking up the full book, having a couple of these at the table just as rules references are not necessarily a bad thing either. So it's not like something you're going to have to throw away the minute the official Marvel Multiverse book comes out. But saying that, what are your thoughts? Have you read it yet? What are your opinions? Which is your favorite Marvel RPG? Comments are there for a reason, and as long as you're respectful, I would love to talk to you about it. In the meantime, I guess I bid you adieu, happy gaming, and Excelsior.